Hey, folks, for episode 70 of the Rental Roundtable, we had on Chris Keys. He is a territory manager at Premier Truck Rental. This is a really interesting episode. I honestly didn't know much about truck rental, and this company is killing it. They've gone from 0 to 300 employees and 0 to 15,000 trucks nationwide in the last 11 years. You can tell how excited Chris is working there. He has a career in rentals, rental manager, working with manufacturers, over 10 years in the rental space. Very interesting niche business on the truck rental side, which I thought was really cool. We talked about the data center boom that's happening. We talked about one company in particular that has got 76 data centers they're building right now, and they think it'll be 1,000 in the next 10 years. This AI boom that's ultimately going to drive a lot of construction and building was a very interesting topic. And talked about culture that they have there and how they're extremely transparent. They push decisions really far down in the decision tree down to the bottom levels of the organization and how ultimately you get better results that way. So really cool little niche business they have. I say little, it's a big business, but a niche industry of the rental side. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode number 70. We have on Chris Keys. He's the regional territory manager at Premier Truck Rental. He's based in Arkansas. Chris, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I'm counting on you for a referral because I brought on Jake Rockefeller and he referred me to Dave Timpone, and Dave has referred me to you, Chris. So we got to keep the train moving here. So at the end of this episode, I'll look for a referral of someone else we should bring on the
Yeah,
podcast today.
yeah, sure. I think I got a couple good ones for you. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on today. You have an interesting background where you've sort of touched different aspects of a rental company, right? So you started as a rental manager. You worked on the manufacturing side of things. You're now renting trucks to job sites as well. So I'll always love to start these podcasts to hear about people's stories. I think they're so interesting. How did you first get into rental, and kind of walk me through, the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years of your career? How did you get here today?
yeah, so just kind of one of those things where you run into people and things just kind of trickle from there. So, straight out of college, moved to Missouri with my wife, and got a job in the rental industry. So, started as a rental manager. Actually worked with Dave back in the day. I think it was like 2015 when I started. So, did my years there. Really enjoyed the rental business. We took a um, non-profitable rental department, made it profitable, grew it. So it was a lot of fun. Did a lot of heavy iron, did compact equipment, mainly on a local market, but um, then started to reach out with different product lines, and we got a little farther out. So kind of got a taste of the pipeline business in that, and then um, we were looking to move back, and manufacturer reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to work for us since you're leaving anyway?" And I absolutely said, went to Terramac, was a regional sales manager for them for 4 years. Covered 10 states, covered seven mainline dealers with Komatsu, Doosan, Bobcat, some specialty rental houses. And then another thing, one thing led to another. And, um, had Premier Truck Rental reached out, and they were trying to grow their footprint in Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Had some pretty strong connections and relationships there. And so decided to take a chance. Didn't know anything about truck rentals at the time. Didn't know who rented them. Didn't even know people rented trucks in the construction industry. Come to find out, man, was I very clueless for being in the industry that long. So it was interesting, and I've enjoyed it. I love working with customers, and look forward to doing it for a few more years at least.
Yeah, so you've been around rental or in rental directly for about 10 years. How did you first get plugged into that first rental manager job in Missouri? What turns you on to that? Did you have family in the rental industry? I'm always interested how people even hear about this space because not everybody even knows it exists, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah. And I didn't realize it was as big as it was, when I was coming out of college. So, I grew up with an ag background, got a ag business degree, from Arkansas Tech, and, you know, loved farming, been around equipment all my life. And was like, yeah, I think I want to go, stay around equipment. I enjoy it. I love everything to do with it. So, I when we figured out we were moving to Missouri, I just started, looking at every equipment dealer I could and started applying, and, just through websites, didn't know anything, didn't know anybody. So, had a guy that gave me a chance. He waited 6 months to hire me. which I thought was wild, so I could finish college.
Mm,
And I happy it happened. It was a
yeah.
great time. So
Yeah, so you sounds like you loved equipment, yeah, farming, et cetera. Yeah, when I tell people what I do is, we're vertical software for equipment rental companies, and the first question goes, "What's an equipment rental company?" After normal people off the street, and I have to say, "Well, you go to a job site, you see all the construction on there. Well, 60% of that equipment is usually rented, and the companies that rent that equipment, that's a rental company, right? So, uh, I didn't even know this existed 6 years ago, to be honest. Like, you just sort of like it's a huge industry at $80 billion in the U.S. and the average person doesn't even realize that there's 10,000 rental companies in the U.S. that do this stuff, right? So that's
right.
why I always ask how do people get into it because I think once people are exposed to it, people just it's sticky. You're just there. It
Yeah.
sticks to you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get out of it. I feel like, it's, I loved it when I got in it, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going back to,
You don't
and
really hear many people who get in and leave. Well, if they do, it's within the first 3 months because you realize a lot of hard work, a lot of grit, a lot of early mornings, a lot of customer calls, and that's not for everybody. But uh, I think it weeds people out pretty early on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I never forget when I first started. The being on the rental manager side, it was the art of tough conversations, right?
Mm,
And it was you hated to break it, but at the end of the day, we're all just people, and
mm.
sometimes, if you tear stuff up, well, we've got to talk about it, and there's people that get mad, but that was one of the biggest challenges that I saw when I came into the industry.
Was having to have the direct conversations with the customers when usually around like broken equipment or damaged equipment typically.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think it is something you kind of have to learn, right? I mean, you have a personal relationship with a lot of guys, but it's like, when somebody throws a $20,000 bill in front of you and say, hey man, you owe me $20,000, nobody wants to have that conversation. It's not going to go pleasantly usually.
10 years later, has that gotten any easier to have those conversations?
Yeah, yeah, in a way, right? So there's still ones you cringe, but you kind of learn to do your due diligence, like, hey, and then you just have to realize that everybody's human, right? I didn't tear up the equipment, but at the end of the day, it's business, and we have to discuss it like a partnership. It's
Mm.
this is not a transactional thing, so and then you just kind of move on. So
Which is why you have to have the signed rental contract and the damage waiver and all that stuff. So pull it
yeah,
out. Look, you signed this. You said you're going to do it. If you're not executing at a high level, you maybe didn't get the signed contract that create other exposure. But if someone agreed to do something and they signed it, you're just holding everyone accountable to what we all agreed to, right? And I think
yeah,
sometimes 1% of the people are just going to be bad people and they're going to say, I didn't do it. And they're going to fight
yeah,
you. But most people aren't that, right? Most people are going to say, yep,
no,
I did that, right? It's a hard,
yeah.
awkward conversation, but they're going to do the right thing.
Right. Yeah, and you've got that signed rental agreement, and Lord knows, you hope you never have to pull it, right? So I mean, if you actually have to pull that out of the box, it's a bad day, right? And
Yes.
in my career, have very rarely ever had to refer to a signed contract. So
I totally agree. We have that for us for the software side. I've told our team, like, if we ever have to pull out the contract, we're already in a bad spot, right? That means
yeah,
trust is broken. Like, the contract is mostly a formality to signify that, like, it's a virtual handshake. Like,
yeah,
if you're actually pulling the contract out, you're 15 levels deep into broken stuff, broken relationships, broken trust.
yeah,
So it's the same way, right? It's just there as a insurance policy, worst case scenario, but long term, you don't really want to get in that behavior of, hey, you said this in the fine print, right? Uh,
no, yeah,
so,
right.
so anyways, tell me about PTR. You got your shirt there, Premier Truck Rental. For people who don't know what that is, tell me about the scale of PTR. What do you guys do? How you different from your competitors?
Yeah, so like I said, didn't know anything about trucks before, but I tell you what, it's interesting, and so there's a few large players, and I think there's 4 or 5 main competitors, and then some small guys. So we are an 11-year-old business,
Oh,
individually owned, um, by a gentleman named Rob Froxel and his daughter Adrian Horn. So it is a family-run business. Don't quote me, but I believe we're somewhere around 300 employees now, in
wow.
11 years. Um, Went from zero to about 15,000 units in that time. So Rob came from the rental world. He owned a company called Nesco Equipment, which was in the power line business, and And so basically, we saw this niche of, we know the power line business, we know the pipeline business, and that's kind of where we got our foothold. And we've got a lot of old relationships that helped us, and our goal is to be different all the way around. So we want to run newer equipment. You know, we want to run, American made, Ford, Dodge, Chevy. We stick to what we do. We try to be good at what we do, and we try to hire the best of the best. We we have a very diverse employee base, from management to sales to we focus hard on building the environment and the team around us, right? So we make making sure everybody's a good fit is a huge deal to us. So we run from California to Florida to Maine, and we can have a truck delivered to you in that kind of time from order delivery, about 3 to 4 days anywhere in the country. um, we kind of set ourselves apart because uh, we do custom trucks. So if your company trucks are set up with decals and toolboxes and strobe lights and all this, we basically can take your company rigged out truck and we can set them up exactly like that in the same 3 to 4 day time frame and deliver it tax title license ready to roll to a hotel, for a guy that's just starting. So very interesting to see. We've got a lot of great people that make magic happen every single day. Um, and it's kind of where I got my foothold into, how big processes and procedures, can help you with scalability. So that was a new one to me. And when you're just talking in the masses.
Yeah. Well, so just make sure I got the numbers right. 11 years old, gone from 0 to 300 employees and 0 to, you say 15,000 units?
Yeah.
And those are mostly all trucks or
Trucks and trailers. So we have
trucks
a,
and trailers?
a, a very large trailer fleet. Basically everything's under CDL requirements. So
Mm,
no big trucks, no semi trailer stuff like that, but gooseneck trailers and deck over trailers and equipment trailers. So we're dealing with the same people that are renting from all the other companies, the mom and pops, the United Rentals, stuff like that, dealing with the same exact customer base for the most part.
and why would someone rent a truck versus buy a truck, right? I'm interesting. The custom component, right? Because if I've got a company truck that's custom with the paint and the decals, at some point you may just buy it, right? Why would someone rent it? And yeah, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a big question of mine when I got here, right?
Yeah.
So there's quite a few reasons. So I mean, one, you get a tax benefit, right?
Yeah.
Instead of a 3 or 5 year depreciation schedule, you get to write off 100% of that monthly payment, right?
Hmm.
The kicker is, what truck makes it 5 years in the construction business going down a right of
Hmm.
way or a job? So it's pretty rough on them. So you're not going to get the life out of it that you're going to get out of a personal vehicle on the most part. But at the same side, it's scalability and it's risk management. So there's a lot of mega projects going on right now, whether it's data centers or the
Yeah.
Ford Blue Oval project, stuff like that. And you go land a say $100 million project or whatever it is, one of these data centers, you've got to put guys in trucks. Well, if you need 200 trucks and the job is 2 years long, or maybe it's 6 months long, does it make sense to go put 200 trucks worth of debt on your balance sheet, or can you leverage that for other things?
Hmm.
So, the funny thing is, I remember sitting down with a guy and I go, because I asked him this question. He had been a fleet manager for 30 years for a company called Mears. Um, and he goes, Chris, he said, it's funny. He said, when you add in tax, title, license, maintenance, he said, a lot, and you've got 2,000 of them out there as a company. He's like, for one, that takes a whole lot of people to manage. He said, you've got a lot of maintenance you've got to keep up with. You've got a lot of downtime that I can't equate to. He said, I can't really put a number on what that cost me while I'm making a payment while it's sitting at a dealership. He said, so when you actually run the numbers, not including downtime, he said, our cost is almost exactly the same to rent it versus own it. He said, but I don't
Hmm.
have to deal with 50% of the headaches. and headaches in fleet when you have 200, 300 trucks, um, are a whole lot different than equipment just because of the volume. And that was a new one to me. So,
Interesting. Well, I don't have to. You have to argue with the numbers. The success of your company tells me that there's demand there. I've never even thought about truck rental, to be honest. Maybe our listeners know about this stuff, but this is all sort of interesting and new to me. And also the predictability part, right? You know, you got the same payment. I don't know if you guys cover damages, et cetera, but it's probably very predictable. You could model it out. You 2-year project, et cetera. That could be pretty attractive, right? Because I think the reality is if you're building something, you got a trillion things to worry about. If you can make it a trillion minus one now because you have predictable,
right.
trucks, that's good, right?
Yep.
We all have, it's also stay in your lane, stay in what you're good at. And managing a fleet of 200 trucks is probably not what contractors wake up every day and they're great at, right? Uh,
No, they look at it as a liability for the most part. They're like,
yeah,
we got to have it. It's a necessary evil. I don't enjoy them, but because they don't make any money technically, right? So you
yeah,
can't put it on a job and say, hey, it can dig X amount of yards a day, right? So you can measure production with an excavator.
yeah.
You can't really measure production on a truck. So
No.
it's just this fixed cost that goes into the job, and that's kind of why they like the rental side because they know what that cost is. They don't, they don't have to go to a dealership and buy it. And I think we all know it takes a little bit of time to buy a truck from a dealership
Or buy 100 trucks from a dealership.
or 100. Yes,
Well,
DMV is going to be fun.
yeah, exactly. Who is your main, sort of ideal customer, ICP, ideal customer profile? Is it people doing these data centers, these really large jobs? Is it smaller builders? Is it a mix? What's your core customer base?
It's a mix, right? So it really is. I would say we started in the pipeline and power line business, and primarily because those are very fluctuant markets, right? They're
Yeah.
good when they're good, they're bad when they're bad, or there can, basically you can go from having more work than you know what to do with, to no work. It's just the nature of that business. So, but they're both cash flow heavy businesses at the same time. So, you know, um, it's those are two really good markets, but what we've noticed, like when you have transient customers or these large scale customers, and now with the mega projects, those guys are trying to scale up. So now there's a whole lot more in the general construction space. The solar space is big, just because of the amount of people it takes. But we we also deal with pest control companies. We deal with
Mhm.
some guys that only have 5 trucks, or 10 trucks, or because when you're a newer company, 3 years old, like I said, putting a truck costs what, 50, $60,000 now for a 3/4 ton truck. So you buy two of them, you got $100,000 worth of debt on your books. Well, that's gonna kind of slow down your growth. But if you have a rental payment, they don't see $200,000 worth of debt. They see $3,000 a month. So kind of helps with financing and stuff too as you're trying to grow and scale.
And given like, the national scale, you mentioned Maine to Florida to California, you
Yeah.
probably have a sense of how the general construction market is doing, right? There's all these data points, and a lot of rail companies we talk to are local, independent, maybe regional. The nationals have their data set. Rouse has their data set. You can read the
Yep.
Dodge reports. What's your sense of the construction building economy? Are things expanding with the data centers? The jobs reports came out today. It was a little lower than expected. Are things slowing down? I'm curious your view of where the macro construction movement is going. Are we continuing to build? Or are things slowing down?
We haven't seen a slowdown. So we've seen a little bit of slowdown in certain markets like solar.
Yeah,
There's not as
yeah.
much subsidy, so it's slowing down a tad bit. There's still a lot going on. Um, but the pipeline is doing great, especially on the non-union side. We're seeing that picking up as they're trying to transport more oil and gas. The mega projects right now, I was telling a buddy the other day that I'd never noted. I mean, I've been traveling states for almost 7 years now, and I've never seen this many big projects happening at one time. I mean, they're just everywhere you turn in every state. So I'll be honest, it's funny because I still talk to all my buddies in the equipment industry, and we tend to pick up about 2 weeks before they pick up. So if we're going through a slow time, it's like I talked to them, they're like 2 weeks later, and like, man, it's really slow. I'm like, yeah, I lived that 2 weeks ago, you know? And it's funny because the trend seems, I don't know if there's any data behind it, but it just seems to be the trend that we've noticed. But for the construction market, there are little pockets that aren't as busy,
Yeah.
right? But if you're looking on a broad scale, um, to us, it feels very stable and it feels like it's still growing. Like
Yeah.
we're still getting busier and busier every day. More jobs are kicking off, and with these bigger projects, these are 4 and 5 year projects on these data centers. So once they get started, the more you add, it's not like that job's over. They're just adding to the pile.
Mhm. And I imagine as these data centers, is artificial intelligence driving a lot of that? Is the AI movement part of that?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
That's what we see. Now there may be more to it. I cannot tell you that I'm a expert in any data centers at all.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what we've noticed.
I just got back from an AI conference last week 'cause as a software person,
Okay.
you gotta be on top of that, and I think as much of the data centers we're building, I don't even think it's enough still. So, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I mean, everybody's adopting it, and we're just blowing through the usage of it, like, I don't know. In the next 10 years, these big projects, I don't know if they're gonna be slowing down.
So it's funny you say that you say you don't think there's enough. So I can't say that I understand the AI
Yeah.
at all. I question it a lot. I'm like, how do they make money to pay for these? Because I'm looking at them going, my God, the fuel bill on that job is
Well,
absolutely insane, right?
they're not making money yet. They're making revenue,
Okay,
but they're
yeah.
burning billions of dollars right now.
Right, right, and you can see it. I mean, you can see it going up in diesel fuel every day.
Yeah.
But I heard the other day through they're one of the owners of the data centers, and I think they said something about there's like 76 of them going in right now. Now they're not all going to be the mega ones. But I'm pretty sure he told me within, I want to say it's like 15 years they want like 1,000 out there. So if you're at 76 to 1,000, that's a whole different story,
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Is that in Texas or where was that? Was that
It was all over. That
all
was
over?
that was one of the owners. I can't remember the name of the company. I'd never heard of them, but they were an owner of the data center that was having it built. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna get on an AI tangent here because our audience knows I will, but, I think the consensus, depending on who you ask, my belief is that this is biggest technology shift we've seen in our lifetime, and I would say maybe potentially more transformational than the internet, and I think the difference between the internet and this is, like, people were sort of like, the internet sort of adopted over a period of time, like, I
yeah,
remember waking up for school in the '90s and logging on to the AOL to see if we had school canceled because of the snow, and it took 5 minutes for the internet to load. But, like, AI is being adopted, like, everybody,
oh
even
yeah,
people who don't use technology using ChatGPT today. So, what's
yep,
happening is I think people are moving much faster into this, and I think the limitation for adoption of where this could really move is gonna be resources. It's gonna be lands, data centers, power, and
yep,
I think within some period of time, that is gonna be a limitation. I think the guy who's like, "I'm going from 76 to 1,000," he sees that, right?
yeah,
He knows
yeah.
that, and I
Somebody
think that's
sees
gonna
the
be
long
good for
term vision.
builders.
Yeah,
And you follow the
yeah,
money. I mean, even the big beautiful bill that passed in July, there's like effectively there's no regulation on AI for the next 10 years, which, there are some dark sides to AI, but China's not doing that. If you're gonna compete in this AI arms race, which is what we're in, you don't have a choice globally. Because I
yeah,
think, there's a belief that whoever controls the AI is gonna control the world. So I don't know about all that, but I'll just say is I think these projects that are kicking off are going to accelerate.
yep,
Maybe this year, next year will be down or up, but if we look at the next 10 or 15 years, I think there's a lot to be bullish on in building, but obviously for the rental side as well. So that's my tangent for now. I want to talk about sales teams here, right? Because you've managed and led sales teams. I want to talk about the importance of efficiency as you've scaled. Like, even the brief time you've been at PTR, you guys have been growing pretty rapidly. When you think
yeah.
about building out a sales team, moving from one salesperson to actually an organization and a team, what are some of the things that you have to be thinking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I we are very good and I give PTR a lot of credit. We're very good about giving. So basically, I guess how we work with our team. So our individual teams are made up of a territory manager, an inside sales rep, and then we have a couple rental coordinators for each team, right? So that's how we do what we a little bit of how we do. I won't tell all the trade secrets, but so those all my team basically handles all of my customers. So anybody that bills out of Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, for me, um, my team covers them nationwide. So we don't have multiple reps talking to them. We know our customers. My inside sales reps know our customers. Our rental coordinators know our customers. So um, we're big on building out individual departments, and we're big on trust, right? So that was one of the hardest things from where I'd come from in the past is you kind of have to uh, you follow the process. That's what you see a lot of times in the equipment industry is that the guy that's outside has the relationship, right? But he's kind of living and dying with that, right? So every little problem here or there, he's dealing with. Well, it really bogs him down. You hired a sales guy maybe because of his personality, who he knows, his background, whatever. His job's to sell. His job's to be in the road, buy a breakfast, buy a lunch, whatever it is. So, why does he need to deal with, you know, did a track break on the machine? It really shouldn't be his deal. He shouldn't be in the middle of it at any point in time, right? You have a service manager, that's what they're for. So we're big on delegation. And we have a lot of great people. We have a lot of people that we're big on trust. So if you say you're gonna do something, you do it. And if you tell somebody else, even with the scale, like things get missed, but at some point in time, like I take the order and then I don't even necessarily know when the truck's getting delivered. I preface to the customer like, hey, I'll be there in about 4 or 5 days, whatever. And then it goes through the process. It goes to our scheduling team, our upfit team. It goes to our logistics team, and then you got logistics. Letting the customer know when it's going to be there. So, it's interesting to see, and I think it's something that I it it comes with a lot of pain points that I saw in the equipment industry. That you know, how can you get things away from the sales guy having to handle it, right? Or your rental
Mm.
guy or whatever it is, because ideally you want him going out, meeting new people, shaking hands, and not doing day-to-day things. So,
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good perspective. Like you almost like you want your salespeople doing as little things that are not selling as possible. Like,
yeah,
and obviously, there's some percentage of every salesperson who's got to do some things that are not sales activity focused. But you're like, how do we minimize that? How do we get our salespeople doing only selling? Right.
yeah. Yeah, and kind of the way we work is like, our inside reps are an extension of us. And that's where I give PTR a lot of credit is that we'll take guys or girls or whatever that, maybe they don't have sales experience, right?
Mm.
But they have a good personality. They're willing to talk to people. They're willing to pick up the phone. And we try to build them from the ground up. So we give them that start that, to go get an outside territory manager position. That guy probably wouldn't have a chance to get it originally, unless he's just killer attitude and stuff like that. But he just doesn't have the experience, and I think we all know and anymore. You go look for a job and it says, well, 10+ years experience, right, to get this. Well, you got to give somebody a shot. So
Mm.
we work with our inside sales reps as kind of we've been in the industry, we know customer base, and so we're a team all the way around. So if it's damaged bills, we're going to split the the responsibility there. Every text message, email string, whatever, it's us and our inside sales rep, right? So it's not just me. So he or she knows that if customer has a problem, they're just as involved, and they're going to help, and everybody has visibility to everything that's going on, which really makes it so much easier for me to go drive 5 8 hours, live on the road 5 days a week, and not be behind in what we're doing. So
On the visibility side, are you saying like all the customer communications, all the schedules, that's all being able to be streamlined and seen by you? I mean, how transparent are you guys?
very, very. So we're not here to hide anything, right? So we
Mm,
have one team, one goal, and that's us as a company whole, right? We're all driving to do better, to take care of the customer, whether that's field service, whatever. So we built a lot of our own systems. So we like use Microsoft Power BI, right? And so not only can we see the communication with the customer, right? We my whole team can see it if they need to see it. But we can also see like all our visibility internally, right? So, the one thing that I kind of always, it's always a pain point when I was on the equipment side was, watching a sales guy having to call the office and go, "Hey man, do we have a PC 250 in stock?
mm.
Okay. Do we have five in stock? Do we have the buckets to fit them?" That's a 5 minute long conversation if the guy on the other end of the phone answers immediately, right?
Mm.
So, the nice thing about us is we have everything at our fingertips. So, I can see my entire inventory. I can sit in front of a customer, and we don't pay, out the wazoo for it. We don't have this, Salesforce built out, costing us whatever number that is a day or a month or whatever. But we're constantly developing that so we can see our revenue stream. We can see if we're putting more on than off, because our idea is growth, and anything that tends to challenge us, we need it out of our way. I
Mm.
need to be able to handle something in 3 minutes, and we need to be moving on to the next.
On the transparency side, Ray Dalio and he's got a book called Principles, and he's a hedge fund guy, but he's like the ultimate extreme transparency, the point of uncomfortability. Like he
Yeah,
just says like, right, that's the extreme version. I generally think companies are stronger when they are transparent. Like we have a what we call the data dashboard. Every metric in the whole company is visible, including cash balance. I just was
yeah,
like, screw it. We're gonna have revenue numbers, all of that. Are you guys that level? You're showing revenue numbers and you're
yeah.
like putting that out there. All 300 people could see that.
Well, maybe not all 300, right?
But,
I mean,
but
the shop technicians, maybe they're not looking at that. They're not in that stuff all day. But anybody that's needing to make, when I would say it's more like when it comes to management or customer facing people, or decisions, like you have sometimes you just have to be able to make an educated call, right? So and that education usually comes tied to money, right? So
mm,
if I have a guy that needs 50 trucks, right? Okay, well we have to make an educated decision quickly on how we're going to handle that. Do we have all of these? So we, for the most part, the entire sales team, and all of management and everything can see it. The people that are going to, I guess, utilize it. But there's reports that I can see, that the shop has, and vice versa. So um, our idea is the more educated you are, the better you can make a decision. We're not here to micromanage anybody. We're here to hire, like I said, we try to hire the best of the best, and we want you to still be able to think for your own, um,
mm.
but also continue to grow, and not have to go to everybody for an approval of this or that. Like, you have a job to do. Obviously, you're here because you make money. If you don't make money, you may not be here. Like, we're here to protect the company and our own interests at the same time.
Yeah. I actually find it really refreshing when companies are like, look, we're here to serve our customers, but we're a business, right? And
Yeah,
we're here to make money for our employees and our shareholders. I remember a talk, they were, people were like, why do you show up to work? And everyone was like, I love what I do. And they were like, all right, raise your hand if you would show up to work if your salary was now $0 for the next year. Right? Really? Right. Well,
yeah,
people aren't showing up for work anymore. So I think it's
yeah,
refreshing when people talk about, look, we're a business
yeah.
and we're gonna do the right thing for our customers, but also the business, which requires bringing in revenue and paying our employees and ultimately generating a profit.
Yeah, and I think that comes from what we mentioned earlier. Is it's a partnership between you and your customer, right? So, um, that they have a business to run, you have a business
Yeah.
to run, and you have to find a collaborative partnership that will work in the best interest. And every decision really needs to be made in the same thought process.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like PTR seems to me like a very autonomous organization where correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you give people a lot of context, a lot of transparency, a lot of here's the big goals, here's the values, here's the vision,
Yeah,
and you're ultimately responsible to own your territory, right? And how you get there is sort of up to you. Is that sort of the model that you guys have built there?
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much to a T. So I mean, there's more people than you can even imagine that can see all our email communication, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But we don't use it in a negligent manner ever, right? So like
You'll
it's
be
never
found. You'll
once
be
come
you'll
up.
be found out if that is happening, right? If you're
Yeah,
slacking
or,
off and you're the transparency actually drives a higher bar
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, and you don't want it to affect productivity. You don't want people to be scared, right? Like, hey,
Mm.
we hired you. We know you know how to talk to people. There are some instances that the conversation doesn't steer the same way as it always does, right? And we support. We have support from management, ownership. And I think that's important that you support your team, right? So, I part of the team that management's over, and then I've got my team under me, and we're all here for one common goal, and that's to do business and do business the right way and provide our customers with what we can, the best product we can.
Have you heard of the book? I think it's called "Turn the Ship Around." It's by it's a submarine guy. So one of our competitors actually recommended to me. I'm good friends with him, and it's a leadership book. But this submarine in the Navy was in like the last place. It was ranked 60th of the submarines out of 60, and he kind of
Okay.
came in and he pushed all the decisions down as far as possible. Like, and the way you do that, you got to push all the decision, the uh, all the data, etc. And the idea is they went to the saying, of course, they become the best submarine. But the whole thing was your employees from the very bottom person needs to come up to the next level and said, "Hey, I intend to do X today, and here's how I'm going to do it." And then the manager says, "Sounds good." Or, before you do that, actually don't push that button because you're going to shut down the whole submarine. But the whole thing is you put autonomy and ownership down at the organization versus you saying, "Hey, guy, I need you to go do X, Y, D today," and they don't feel empowered. By pushing the decision making all the way down the organization, you get more buy-in, more ownership, and by the way, better decisions because they're closest to the actual data, right? And they're closest to the customer and they're close to everything. So I read that book about a month ago, Turn the Ship Around. I just thought it was very interesting. And I love the phrase. So I've told our team, when you come to me with stuff, come to me with, I intend to do X. And I'm going to say, go do it. Or I'll say, before you do that, don't push that button because you're going to break something, right? But for the most part, they're not going to break it. But I love that phrase, I intend to do X. And it sounds like you guys have been able to do that. You pushed all the decisions down as far as possible and you've created a culture of autonomy.
Yeah, yeah, and hey, it's not perfect, right? It's growing and changing every day. I mean,
Yeah.
we make changes very quickly. It may be major changes, right? And it's something that we know. Okay, it's a problem. We got to try something else. Is it the perfect solution? I don't know. If it doesn't work, we'll back up and punt again, right? It's not going to kill us, but if we don't move forward, we can't continue to grow. And
Mm,
it's one of those things I've always empowered in my team and people around me. But we empower it here too. Is okay. There's a problem every time you turn around in business, right? Whether it's a
hmm
customer problem, internal problem, and the way we handle our team meetings, our leadership meetings, are if you have a problem, okay, bring it to the table. But the next question you're going to get asked is, well, what do you propose we do, right?
hmm
What it I'm not asking you for a perfect answer, but if you have a problem, do you have an idea of how we can fix it? Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. We don't know, but don't come to the table with this is the problem. Okay, well, you know, it's not our job to necessarily figure out that problem, but if you have an idea of how we can make that problem better, we're all ears, and then
hmm
we try to, really drive off the feedback from our customers, then internally as well.
And I think that's a great point there. I think it's hard for if you're a rental company listening to this is like what we're talking about is letting go of control, right? If you're running an organization where you're at the top and you make every decision and everything, what color is the shirt all the way down, but like to change to the organization that you guys have and that the submarine had, I was referencing, there is like a period of time, several months where you're like letting go and it's like you're letting go of the wheel,
Oh, it's
and
hard.
it's very scary.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely commend a lot of people, really good managers that I've met and sales leaders that I've met in the industry. I commend them, for the trust aspects that they have and things like that. And it's something that you have to learn, right? You have to pull back, but then again, you have to have some policies and procedures, but you're not writing an SOP on it, right? So, you know, we're in sales. You it's not like you're going to go online to Amazon and click, oh, I want a truck, right?
Mhm.
The day that happens is the day that you start losing customers. I
Mhm.
believe.
Mhm.
We are a forward facing customer, or a forward facing business. A customer wants a hamburger. You gotta go buy the hamburger, right? We're not an Amazon store, and
Mm.
I don't believe that, me personally, and I may be wrong. I don't feel like it'll ever get there, right?
Mm.
I hope it don't, because then some of us are gonna be struggling a little bit, in the sales careers. But it is a I think that just comes down to you have to build the right team. You have to trust them, and you have to put metrics behind it and go, hey, your job is to do this, and if you don't, well, okay, we might have to go a different way, right? But
Yeah.
whether that's pricing a machine out on the sales side, or just you know how you're handling a customer in the field, you have an expectation. Just make sure you meet the expectation. If you can't, make sure you can speak to it.
Right. And it's really hard as an entrepreneur. A lot of rental companies, started by the owner themselves. And, we've got in my company 25 people now, but when it was started, it was one. It was me, and I did every job. And
Yeah,
every 2 months, I fired myself from a job, and we've hired someone to do it. And it's all,
nice.
it's gotten easier now, but for a while, it was like sort of hard. You let go of it, and you're like, hey, you're not doing it the way I used to do it. But you give it enough time, you hire the right people, they ended up doing better than you, right? And the results are amazing. And you can actually take vacations and you build an organization like you guys have. Like, your owner, your founder 11 years ago, if he was holding everything white knuckle, you guys wouldn't be 300 employees right now, right? That's the difference
Oh,
between the
absolutely not.
guys who stall out at one location, the guys who can go nationwide, is like building the organization and the culture. If you build the
Yeah.
organization, that organization ends up building the company, right?
Right. And you just mentioned the one that I probably haven't mentioned, that is the highest on our list, and it's culture, right? So, make sure you're hiring for fit, right? There's some things, if you have drive, if you're hiring drive, okay, well, they're probably coachable, right? But at the same time, you have to find the people that are a good fit. So, if they're you want the guys that are walking in, smiling and happy every day, and hey, everything can go bad, and we're still trying to, stand back up and keep going, right? We're still driving that way. So we are huge on culture. We want a good culture. I mean, Lord, we've got a gym in each one of our main locations with a personal trainer, stuff like that.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, actually, right now they're doing I think they've got a fresh pick festival basically. So it's like a bunch of farmers and stuff came down, and they got a bunch of organic, or homegrown food and stuff, and it's like, it's drive the culture, but that has to start at the top. It can't start, from the bottom. So, and it's so noticeable what you get out of it when you have that culture.
Mm. And last thing on that topic is you mentioned hiring earlier. I think you were sort of saying like if they got the right personality, they're coachable. You're sort of could train anyone. I mean, how do you when you are onboarding people and you guys have now hired 300 people? Uh, how important is experience and the perfect resume? And they worked at United Rentals and they did it versus someone who doesn't have the resume but they've got the intangibles. I mean, what do you really look for when you're bringing on new people?
I would say, if so we try to look at it as, yeah, I say that, everywhere I've ever worked, I've usually been one of the youngest people holding my position. And I found it funny, but I also appreciate it. But at the same time, so obviously I don't have as much experience as everybody around me, right? But somebody gave me a chance. And I
Mm.
think we try to look at it the same way. Like, are you coachable? Um, do you want to do better with, every day? Do you have that internal drive? Like, I can't just wave a magic wand and give that to you, right? But if you have a good personality, if you're willing to learn, and you're willing to work towards something bigger, you know, then we can probably do something there. So, like, maybe our territory managers, we're looking for some previous relationships, right? Because they are forward facing and they are on the road all the time. They have to be able to self manage themselves or manage themselves. But at the same time, like I would say most of our inside sales reps that are actually handling a lot of day to day customer interaction, you're not going to find sales on many of their job titles. You're not going to find an
Mm,
AT&T store even, but you're going to find people that want to learn. And then we want to help develop them as well, right? Because somebody has to give you a shot. Somebody gave me a shot years ago. Never been in the rental equipment business. So at some point, you just have to take a chance. And then, our big thing is if you do good, we're going to find a way to promote you, right? We're
mm,
going to find another place. And if you want to go somewhere else, if you don't like the sales side, okay, well, where are you going to sell? We don't, we don't want to get rid of you. We don't want to lose anybody. We have good people. We have a good culture, like, and you have a home lot. So what fits your realm? Do you want to go to parts? Do you want to? Doesn't matter, but we're going to try our best to find the best fit. And sometimes that means moving people a little quicker than normal. But you know we're not here to say, oh, you've got to have 10 years experience or you don't get the job. We've got some fantastic people and some really good people um, that maybe have never been in the equipment business, have never been in the truck business, like myself, right? You know, but and we have people from all different backgrounds, right? I mean, we've got guys that used to sell paint, or we're looking. Can you go have a conversation with somebody? Are you scared to knock on a door? Now maybe that's a learned trait. I remember my first cold call when I got into business. A little nerve wracking, but when you figure
yes.
out they can't take away your birthday, then okay,
Yeah.
well, what's the worst that can happen? They ask you to leave. Okay, just come back. You know.
Yeah.
So no, we're just looking for the best fit. Experience is a plus,
Yeah.
but we can probably get you where you want to go.
I love that. And someone told me about cold calls. They can't kill you and they can't eat you. So, at the end of the day,
No,
worst case, they hang up on you.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'll never forget when I first got started, and the guy just got absolutely irate with me. I'm like, what I do? And it wasn't nothing that I did. He was just
yeah.
having a bad day, right? You know.
Yeah.
So like, okay, well, we'll call back, and
It
he's the nicest guy in the world.
comes with the territory and sales a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, well, Chris, it's been awesome having you on. We're just out of time. We didn't get to talk about the parts of strong marketing team and social media presence. It's been huge for you guys. We'll have to save that for another episode. But it's been awesome having you on. Last question I always ask everyone, Chris, is best career advice you've gotten that's helped shape your success in your career. Anything you want to share there?
that's best career advice. Um, don't be scared to mess up, right? You don't know everything, and don't be scared to ask a question. There is no dumb question. I mean, I know that goes a long ways, but at the same time, like, and I think that goes from anybody that's at a ground level to management to the CEO, right? Sometimes you just have to make a call. You have to go gut feeling.
Mhm.
Obviously, you're going to back that up with whatever you can, but to keep moving forward, sometimes you just have to take a chance. So don't be scared to mess up, make the wrong one. If you do, let's fix it. Let's move on with our life. And I think you learn a lot from that as an individual. You learn a lot from it as a company, but it keeps you on a growth trajectory, and it keeps you climbing the bigger mountain. So I don't think anybody's here just because they want to sit still, right? We're not listening to your podcast because we're not trying to get better with our lives. So I guess that's kind of what I would see.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think there's also a theory that like some of the companies that do the best are the most agile, and you become the most agile by making this the decisions quicker than everyone else, right? You're never going to have enough data point. Be thoughtful, but the ones who can move fast, make decisions, continue to iterate. If you're wrong, fire bullets, not cannonballs. Iterate, and you keep iterating, iterating, iterating.
Yeah,
That's how you win, right? You got to it's speed.
absolutely.
So it's been awesome having you on, Chris. I know you were a listener to the podcast and now you're a guest here. So it's been an
Yeah.
honor to have you on today, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Well, Kyle, I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna keep following as well. So thanks for having
All
me.
right. That was good. Thanks, Chris.